A very big welcome to all the viewers watching Soul to Soul talk show. Today we will be continuing this spiritual journey with another personality from Brazil, Brother Ken O'Donnell. He is a former management consultant and has been associated with the Brahmakumaris since over 38 years, and presently he is coordinating the centers in South America. Welcome to the show, brother.
Welcome.
Pleasure
Thanks.
to have you with us.
Thanks very much. It's really a great honor to be here. Thanks.
Honor is ours too. Brother, could you share with us a few, say, milestones in your professional life?
Yeah, well, I was working in, I studied industrial chemistry, and I was working in research and development after I finished my studies in the food industry, and later on in the cosmetics industry. And I was not very satisfied actually, and I decided to go for a journey. And on that journey, I came to know Brahmakumaris, and finally I, went back to Australia and started one of the centres in Sydney. And then I was asked to go to Brazil, so I had to survive. And so my professional life has been always a challenge because I'd studied something very specific and I knew a lot about certain things, and I offered some services and I wrote some books actually on organisation development, and they became very well accepted. And then I was in demand to sort out situations in companies and actually ministries, governments. I've worked with big corporations over the years in all continents, and also several presidents here and there, in more specifically President Fox from Mexico. So it's always been about making organizations and their people better. So in a way, what I was learning about my own development, I could use it in sorting out very difficult situations.
Brother, you told that when you were working with the industry, you were not satisfied with that work. So was that one of the reasons that you went looking for an organization like Brahmakumaris?
Not exactly.
Or was it by chance that you just
No, it wasn't by chance. I was very conscious because I had a very special education. I went to a school for kids who had a special school that in Sydney that they got the 30 kids who had the highest IQs in the city, and they made a school from them. And so I was in a very special school, and I was at an early age in contact with the classical writings, Greek and Roman philosophy and so on. So I was very familiar. I could see that I had an idea that there were some secrets there, and that most religions practically, and they were practically saying the same things with different stories and different people and different figureheads, but basically the same message. Human beings have to overcome their own negativity, and they have to go to God for that. So I was trying to understand that, and that's probably why I went on a journey. I went on a journey from Australia to Europe. The first bit, of course, was by sea, but then I went by land from India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Turkey, like that, and finally I got to England. So by crossing the continents, I came into touch with Buddhism and Islam and Hinduism, and then the Orthodox version of Christianity. And so I had a big eye open in that. It took 6 months, that journey. And so it was like, I was very young. I was only 20, 21. And it really opened my eyes about what I felt, that human beings had pretty much the same problems everywhere, and therefore the solution should be fairly similar as well. And that's what I was looking for.
What was the main objective of this journey that you took?
To get to know the world, basically, to get to know the different traditions. And I could see, for example, that mothers in Australia and mothers in India and mothers in Afghanistan, they suffer the same if their child is hurt or dead or something, or people get angry for the same reasons, you know. And I could see people with rosary in their hand in different places, different sorts of rosaries, and at the same time shouting with others. So I thought, well, you know, the cultural differences are very superficial. The language differences are very superficial. There must be something deeper. And so I was looking for something deeper.
And where did you find it?
Well, I mean, I'm still... I think it's not something you find and that's it. It's something that you, at least, for example, you see this table here, there's some flowers in the middle, there's a big round sort of glass. So you can see the whole thing. But maybe within those flowers even there's a deeper secret, let's say. And so even spiritual development with the Brahmakumaris, I've got the right table, I think, and the right flowers, but still, I don't think you can say you're finished.
Diving deeper, you're still diving deeper.
Diving deeper, yeah.
Brother, as a management consultant, you will have to teach the art of management to others. But was there, did you have to first teach yourself this art to, and you know, teach others? How did you like excel at it?
Well, it was interesting because I got to know Brahmakumaris in 1975 in London. We were the first foreigners. We didn't know it at the time, but we were amongst the first 5 or 6 foreigners. And after a few months, I was here in India on my way back to Australia, and I came to Mount Abu, and I was the only foreigner at the time, and it was like a bit different, a bit strange. But I was very well received and treated like a prince, I would say, that's come home. And then I went back to Australia, and soon after I got there, there had been a BK centre there. It closed because there weren't any students, or they were trying to get things started. And the brother from England who actually started things there, he was on his way back to the UK. And the 2 sisters from India, one was going to Germany and the other one was going to New Zealand or Mauritius, I don't remember. And so I was there alone, and I got all of the things that were there in the centre, and I kept them in my parents' home. And then I got the inspiration, no, this is not right. You know, I can't occupy my dad's garage with all of this stuff. So I wrote to Daddy Prakash Mani, and said, look, I think it's best if I start a centre. And so, okay. At the same time, I found a job. So in the same area of the city also, just a few blocks away. So a centre was here and the job was here. So my development, my professional development really was parallel to my spiritual development. It was at the same time. And so I was noticing things. You know, I was working at that time, I was working in a big cosmetics company in the R&D section in the laboratory. And so it required a lot of concentration and a lot of, I would say, dedication. And as time went on, and as I was progressing in my career, I was also learning more and more about meditation. So I thought, well, in my education, nothing prepared me to work with people. I was prepared to work with things, right, and numbers and formulas and substances, but not with human beings. Right. So I thought, well, this is strange, you know. I'm learning in the BK Centre about how to interact with others and spiritual development, all about dharana, which is like practicing virtues in, in respect and love and so on. And it's something I had not learned in my professional education. So I thought, well, there are three things actually. One is the working with things, one is working with people, one is working with me. And those three areas are interconnected. The way I work with matter, the way I work with people, and the way I work with myself. They're all interconnected. And so I started to, later on I was asked to come to Brazil. And I went, and I had to work because there was I had 3 months to prove if I could do something or not. So I also, at that time, I got some work in a laboratory, and then I started to write books on personal development and organizational development. And they were picked up by publishers, and they were published, and they were doing well, and so I started to get called in. But it was all basically what I found lacking in the formal education about how to interact with others and how to reflect on myself. Those two ingredients added to being able to work with numbers and figures and substances. And so it was very, very, I would say, holistic approach to understanding how organizations and people in them work. And so I started to get called to sort out different things, and that's how it happened.
So you found a difference in the way you interacted after you got this knowledge and before?
Yeah, I guess so, but it was a whole preparation, I suppose, everything even before that. For example, before I got to know Brahmakumaris, I was practicing Raj Yoga of Patanjali. So I knew the niyama, pranayama, and asanas, and the other pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. I knew all of the steps, and in fact I was practicing those principles, which are pretty much similar to the principles we practice in Brahmakumaris. I became a vegetarian because basically I'm a food chemist. And I stopped eating meat because of chemical reasons. Because I could see what people did to keep meat fresh, for example. And I was like, I'm not going to eat that.
Oh, so scientifically it's not good to eat meat?
No, I'm just saying that if you take a piece of flesh and you put it and you analyze let's say you put it with water in a blender and then filter it, and you analyze what's in that liquid, you'll find the same ingredients that you'd find in the urine of the cow. Because when you kill an animal, the blood stops. Right? The things that would have been eliminated if the animal kept on living through the kidneys stops in the blood. So the urea and the formaldehyde and the uric acid and all of that's there. So I said, I'm not going to. Well, I'm not going to eat that. Then afterwards, I started to understand the more moral reasons, the spiritual reasons. But before that was just purely chemical reasons. And of course, in the West, we're ignorant about these things. No one tells us these things. No one.
Other than the Brahmakumaris, any other spiritual organizations before meeting the Brahmakumaris
Not
have you
really.
been in touch with?
Not really. I was.
Like the Patanjali yoga?
No, I didn't really. I did that. I became interested because I was reading the Upanishads, and then I came into contact with the Patanjali's aphorisms, the short phrases, the Yoga Sutras.
Right.
Very, very deep, one phrase with such a lot of meaning. And so I could understand that, yeah, this is interesting. And then when I got to London, and I was with some friends, and I said, where are you going this time of the morning? I was at their house. Are we going to Raj Yoga Centre? I said, oh, wow, Raj Yoga. I didn't know we had a Raj Yoga Centre in England, because it's not really common in the West. I was reading books, basically. I was studying from books, and I was, going into the depth of things. And really, I was brought up in my father is Catholic, and so my family is very strong Christian, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But then I couldn't make sense. I thought, why should one religion be better than the other religions? You know, I was always with this doubt. How come, this one is better and more elevated than this other one? How can these people be saved and not 95% of the rest of humanity, you know? So I really was trying to understand a universal approach to the different religions. So I wouldn't say that I was committed to another religion before Brahmakumaris, really. I was trying to understand all of them.
So did you associate God with religion? Or did you?
No, there was a feeling of God, but I was a little bit confused because the tradition, and even Patanjali, the object of meditation is an omnipresent God, which was difficult. In fact, the object of meditation in Ashtanga Yoga, which is the Patanjali Yoga, the 8 steps, you can meditate, for example, on these flowers and become one with the flowers. And I couldn't understand how that was possible. So basically, I understood after coming to Brahmakumaris that this type of Raj Yoga was more, let's say, symbolically correct. For example, the postures are not postures of the body, but they're postures of yourself, how you face the world, right? So it's not like the Singasana, which is like you put your tongue out, the lion posture. It's the courage that you need to face the world. The lotus posture is the detachment. I started to understand.
More on the subtle aspects of the postures are focused.
Each posture, in fact, should be a posture of our lives, not of our bodies. And the pranayama means control of prana. How do you control that? Not just through breathing. I understood that if you start to have self-control, then everything starts to get controlled around you naturally. You don't have to control everything, but your own self-control makes things under control. And so on. And of course, the main difference is the object of meditation is not anything and everything, but it's the incorporeal God. And that made a lot of sense to me, given the depth of my study. It makes it easy. I just connect up with the Supreme, and that's it.
So did this art of Raj Yoga strengthen your faith in God, your respect for God, your love for God?
After coming to Brahmakumaris, yes. Not before.
Before that?
No.
You were not a believer in God?
I was a believer, but I didn't know God. You see, so it's hard. There's a lot of contradictions, you say, especially in Western traditions, that you're supposed to love someone and you're supposed to be afraid of him at the same time. It's very difficult.
So you didn't understand that.
The idea that we have of some father figure who gets angry from time to time and anything is his will, for example, is very difficult. And when there's an earthquake or a flood or something, people say that's God's will. I couldn't understand it. How can God be like that? So I would say I had an ambiguous understanding of God. On one side there was a lot of love. I knew that there was a God, but on the other side, all of these things, there's this figure of some old man up in the sky throwing lightning on our heads. It didn't match.
So did you ever want to seek the truth, or want to understand it in a spiritual way?
Yeah, that was
thirst for spirituality.
That was definitely there. I was definitely seeking. I just didn't know what I was seeking, but I knew that there was an answer somewhere.
Because you weren't content with what you were doing.
I was comparing also. For example, the story of Krishna when Kans found that the astrologers told him that there's a member of your family who's going to take your kingship at some point, and then he decided to kill all of the children. and the parents of Krishna hid him, and they put him in a basket
right.
and put him in there. It's exactly the same story, actually two stories. When Christ was born, the king called Herod, he was told by the astrologers that someone was born in his family who would take his kingship. And so he got all of the children killed under 5 years old. Same story. Exactly the same story. But then Moses, his parents, when the Pharaoh found out that Moses was going to be such an important person, his parents hid him and put him in a basket and put him in the river. Same story. So you see, when you start to compare the different traditions and you see the same stories, you say, wait a minute, they're all talking about the same thing. So if you look at the Quran or the Dhammapada or the Bible,
so you have read all these scriptures, brother?
Yeah, all of them.
Wow.
You look at, well, the Upanishad is more the dialogue between masters and disciples. But if you look at the Dhammapada and even other like the Taoist traditions, you find the same phrases. Even, for example, treat others as you like to be treated, and so on. The same story sometimes, but different names, different places, different epochs, but the same story. So there is a common ground. And of course, you have all of these traditions. They're like the ends of the spoke of a wheel, right? So each wheel is a different tradition. But if you go to the center of the wheel, it's the same thing.
Everything converges to the same concept.
The same thing. And that was what I was looking for. And that's what I found with Brahmakumaris.
So you didn't find it contradicting the scriptures that you read and the knowledge you found here?
No, not at all. I think it was very elucidating. I mean, it made it very clear for me that this is what it was all about. You know, the idea of the tree, for example. Wow, you know, God is the seed, and all of these different traditions are just branches. You know, the fact that that time is cyclic. You know, and it makes a lot of sense, especially from a more scientific background that I had. So there's a lot of sense to it.
Okay, brother, moving on with your personal life, could you tell us something about your family and your childhood upbringing?
Oh, it was fairly normal. We lived in a very beautiful part of Sydney, which is, you know, just over the back fence. There's a national park. Sydney, of course, a very beautiful city. Lots of beaches and rivers and so on. So there was a river nearby. It was a lot of forests, very beautiful area. And so it was and then I went to that special school, so I got to know lots of other kids, bright kids, and my education was more accelerated, I'd say. I played normal sports like every other kid, I suppose. No, my parents were very, very tranquil people, I would say. And I had was a big family, because it's a Catholic family. They tend to be big. My grandparents are Irish, so the tradition in Irish families was to have lots of kids. So I had another 6 brothers and sisters. And we played and got along okay. It was very nice, very nice. And then they moved to a place even more beautiful on the coast. So it was just close to the beach. So we were surfing and, you know, playing in the ocean. So it was very, very, very interesting, everything. But there weren't any major difficulties, really.
Brother Ken shared with us his personal and professional life experiences before coming in contact with the Brahmakumaris, and the shift in his habits and his lifestyle after coming in contact with the Brahmakumaris. We will get to know more about his spiritual experiences in the forthcoming episode. Do join us in this journey. Thank you, brother, for joining us. Thank you, viewers, for joining us in this episode. Do join us in the next.